Hello and welcome to Spardha Lines, your one-stop destination for the civil services preparation, UPSC, KPSC and other relevant examination. Today we have picked up a couple of important articles from the Hindu which are very significant from your UPSC and your KPSC examination point of view. But before we start with our today's analysis, a quick gentle reminder. For all those of you who have been preparing for the CTI, PDO and the KAS exam, what we have been conducting is a test series. And for those who have already taken the test series, you would know that there are very important questions that are asked, and the video explanation will also provide you a tool as to how to eliminate some of the options. In continuation with it, as part of this test series, the third test will be conducted on 10th of December from 10 am to 11:30 am. And for those of you who want to take up this test, remember it is free of cost, both online and offline test will be conducted. The subsequent one, fourth one, will also be free as well, and after that what we will have is a minimal pay that you have to do to continue with the test series. So let's get started and look into the first article. The first article and the first MCQ is important from the preliminary examination point of view. It is a wildlife sanctuary located in South Delhi district all along Delhi, Faridabad and Gurgaon interstate border. Biodiversity significance of which lies in its merger with Indo-Gangetic Plains, as it is part of Northern Aravalli Leopard Wildlife Sanctuary, an important wildlife corridor which starts from the Sariska National Park in Rajasthan, passes through Nuh, Faridabad and Gurugram districts of Haryana and ends at Delhi Ridge. The above statements best describe Asola Bhatti Wildlife Sanctuary, Nachafgarh Jheel Bird Sanctuary, National Chambal Sanctuary and Tilpat Valley Biodiversity Park. The statements given above is explained best by which of the wildlife sanctuaries? The answer to this is Asola Bhatti Wildlife Sanctuary. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to Asola Bhatti Wildlife Sanctuary, which is why we have taken this practice question. So where is it? It is in the national capital, which happens to be New Delhi. What are the unique features of this wildlife sanctuary? There are about 193 species of birds reported from Asola, along with large number of medicinal plants, more than 80 species of butterflies, hundreds of other insects, mammals such as leopards, nilgai, so on and so forth. And Delhi Ridge is the northernmost extension of one of the oldest mountain systems of the world, Aravalli Range, which begin in the state of Gujarat near the run of Kutch. This happens to be an important habitat for the Indian leopard. Endangered species in the sanctuary include red-headed vulture, Egyptian vulture, and the government of Haryana has a vulture conservation program in place as well. And the near threatened species include painted stork or the white-faced ibis. These are some of the important facts from the preliminary examination point of view. So remember, we have the Asola Bhatti Wildlife Sanctuary. Where is it? It is in the national capital, New Delhi. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is important from your GS paper 2. The article here is speaking about India's dilemmas in the Indian neighbourhood. When we say India's neighbourhood, which are the countries that we speak of? What we have is the Indian neighbourhood. So what we have is Sri Lanka here, followed by Bangladesh at the eastern side. Then what we have is Pakistan. Then what we have is Afghanistan. Then what we have is China. So when we speak about neighborhood relationship, what you have to understand is all those countries in and around India. We also have Maldives along the maritime borders as well. So when we speak about the neighborhood dilemma, the author in this specific case goes about speaking that there are a couple of issues that surfaces because of India's neighborhood, because of the tilt towards China, because of some of the other domestic factors that are existing in the form of local elections, some of the regimes that are present which are antithetical to the existing modern society. All this has created a major problem for India, and ultimately if we have to bring about a change, we have to bring about a change in the psyche and the thought process of India, and ultimately bring about a major revamp in the India's neighborhood relationship. So what are the author trying to say? The author in this specific case is speaking about politically anti-India regimes in the South Asia. What do we mean by politics? Let's say for example, India has a political party. We have one political party, we have a couple of political party which will take up the seat of the union government. Similarly, what you will also have is political parties in another country. There can be one political party in another country which can be favorable towards India. There can be another political party in another country which may not be in favor of India. So how do we ensure that political party which is against India or which is not in favor of India is also listening to India? Why? That is because you will not always have one single regime where India will continue to have good relationship with that particular country. What we will also have is one another political party which may not be in favor of India, which may not like India. Why? Because of an influence of an outside country. So how do we walk in talk with such countries which has antithetical viewpoint, which has viewpoint which is not in likelihood with India, which is not in likelihood with India's perception about the global identity in such a way? How do we take these countries along with India is what needs to be taken into consideration. So the author takes into picture two recent examples that we have to look at. One is with respect to the Maldives. Previously, when you consider Maldives, we had the government which was very in likelihood with the Indian government, which means that they responded to India very well, and all those issues that were surfacing between India and Maldives were corrected over a period of time. So the previous regime that we had in Maldives was regime in terms of India, good regime in terms of India's likelihood collection, and as a result India was able to have a good relationship between India and the Maldives. But what happened? Recently we had the elections, and in this elections the regime which was close to India did not win the elections. Ultimately a new government surfaced into picture, a new political party came into picture. The minute you have a new political party which is not liking India, which is antithetical, which does not believe in the concept of India having a good relationship with Maldives, it obviously wants to recorrect its relationship with India. And one such issue that we currently have is this government that is existing in Maldives right now is not in good terms and conditions with India. As a result, the new government is effectively asking Indians to pack bag and leave the country as well. India had gifted helicopters, it is asking these helicopters to be taken off. India had been conducting naval exercises in some of the pockets of Maldives, it is asking the naval pockets to withdraw from Maldives as well. So the good relationship that was existing between India and Maldives is completely taken off. This is one point of view. The other point of view is with respect to Bangladesh. What happens in Bangladesh? As of now, we have a government which is very good with India. In case India has internal security turmoil, in case India feels that there are insurgent groups which are operating in India and have been living in Bangladesh, such people have been either eliminated within Bangladesh, or these people have been asked and taken hostile and they have been reported to India as well. So the Indian government has a very good regime. Indian government has a very good understanding with the existing regime of Bangladesh. But what could be the likely consequences? The likely consequences is the other political party which is in Bangladesh, which is headed by Khalida Zia, is likely to come in power in Bangladesh, and when that happens, the relationship within India and with Khalid Zia is not that good. So dealing with, for most part, those in the power regional capitals, elected or otherwise, is perhaps the right thing to do as well as less tricky. However, such a one-track policy generates path independence, often alienating other centers of power or opposition leaders. What do we understand by it? As of now, we have good relationship with the regime, but what if there is Khalid Zia government that comes into the picture? So the author in this particular case is, irrespective of who comes to the power, whether it is the principal political party which is in power right now, or it can be another opposition political party which may come in the near future, we need to continue our relationship with such political parties despite not having good relationship with such political parties. So continuing to speak and interact and deliberate and discuss with all those political parties, even if they are not in favor of us, needs to be taken into picture, says the author. That's one part. Then the author also takes into picture Afghanistan as well. Currently, when you look at the state of Afghanistan, it is headed by a Taliban regime. India did not initially recognize the Taliban regime, but we have to continue our relationship with Afghanistan. So we have to recognize for the fact that Taliban is currently overruling this entire part of Afghanistan. So despite India's not likelihood to withdraw that particular government, India should continue its talks so that we cannot break the channels of diplomacy, says the author. Apart from the first political anti-India regimes, the second major factor along India's border happens to be political activeness of Beijing. We know for the fact that there is a concept called as a string of pearls theory. What is the string of pearls? Basically, you have India, and along the borders of India, what we have is China's presence within the India's borders. Look at China influencing Sri Lanka. Look at China influencing Bangladesh. And we know for the fact that Pakistan is an all-weather friend of China. And then they have been influencing Taliban as well. So this ultimately leads to a conclusion that China is influencing India's neighborhood as well. China does not give immediate attention to what the global community thinks. The global community does not recognize Taliban. That does not mean China does not recognize Taliban. Despite the global economy or the global countries not recognizing Taliban, China continues to recognize Taliban and continues to have good relationship with Taliban. That is how China operates. So despite not getting the global recognition, China continues to have its leverage, use its political power, its military power to influence the country. So what does China do? China has huge amount of money with which it is capable of influencing the country. It is able to execute infrastructure projects as well. So the Belt and the Road Initiative is where China is influencing other countries, and it is continuing to come up with the infrastructure project. So Taliban led Afghanistan, military led Myanmar, crisis in Sri Lanka. These are the countries which other countries may not be in likelihood. These are the countries which other countries may not have good relationship with right now, but China will continue to influence these countries primarily because when you are able to stand by the country at the time of the crisis or when the regime is not being recognized by other countries, these countries will immediately start trusting China, and it is what China is looking for. So the country is in crisis, we will provide the support, we will provide the help, and after this entire crisis is done away with, these countries will start seeing China in a very good limelight. That is what China wants right now. So China is looking at building the relationship by building the infrastructure and also recognizing those regimes which other countries fail to recognize. The third major factor that we have to look into is China has diplomatic issues as well as border issues with most of the countries along its own borders. One such area that we have is Bhutan's relationship. So what is China doing? It is trying to settle out differences, border disputes with all those countries leaving India. So what does it wants to do? It wants to alienate India as much as possible so that it has good relationship with other countries, so that these countries also support China. So they know for the fact that the other power likely to actually go against China happens to be India. So they are likely to influence other countries so that in case of a friction between India and China, every other country support China and India will be left with alone. It will be the lone country which is fighting a lone battle, and that is what China wants. It wants to take the goodwill of all other countries by settling the differences amicably so that it can start poking in the borders of India along Uttarakhand, along Jammu and Kashmir, and even along the northeastern part which happens to be Arunachal Pradesh. And the earlier proposition is we had United States of America which was also influencing the South Asian region. It had its pockets in South Asia, which is why China also was not interfering so much. Now that there is withdrawal of United States of America, let's say from Afghanistan or in other countries, it means that China is pushing its agenda in the entire South Asia. So geopolitically locked in with an unfriendly South Asia is India right now, says the author. The other major issue is that there is this region of South Asia which is least interconnected regions in the world, and it is also poor as well. It is natural that the inhabitants of the region will tilt towards a power with the ability to cater to the material needs. India is able to provide all the means and the mechanisms, but China has huge pockets. So whom will countries tilt towards? It is obviously China. Why? Because it also has huge pockets, huge money, it will develop infrastructure, which even if India does, may not be able to compete with China because they have huge money pockets. That's the another disadvantage for India. And New Delhi enjoyed unrivaled primacy in the region. Today, the downside of being the resident power in South Asia, with all its attendant cultural, ethnic, refugee and other spillovers. India, for that matter, has couple of issues that spill over from couple of countries. For example, we have Myanmar issue. So who are the major refugees? We have the Rohingya crisis. Then we have the people who then we have certain section of the people who move from Sri Lanka to India. Then you have certain section of people who come as refugees from Bangladesh as well. So we have people from Myanmar, we have people from Bangladesh, we have people from Sri Lanka who will come over to India. These are the refugees, and then there are illegal migrants who come over to India. India has this particular problem ever since 1947. Is the same problem persisting with China? No. Why? Because China believes it's its own policy, but we cater to the international image as well. So India will not be able to take up any number of steps, but China decides on its own, and ultimately it does not want to convince countries after convince. So what does China do? China does not have any issues on the cultural front, on the ethnic front, on the refugee front or the spillover, but India has all these issues that it creates and rakes up, especially in the South Asia part. So in order to move away from this, what the author says is the old South Asia that was existing is no more existing, but new South Asia is coming into the picture. So in order to move away from this new world, what we have to do is bring changes in our diplomatic regime. So New Delhi must proactively pursue the involvement of friendly external actors in the region. Indian diplomacy must be flexible enough to engage with multiple actors, all political parties, irrespective of whether we have the likeliness or not, and we have to increase the diplomatic presence. So we have to hire more diplomats, and only when we have more people interacting with that particular country, what we will be able to establish is a friendly relationship, says the author. So irrespective of which political party, we have to have the relationship. Irrespective of who the political party is, we have to have the relationship, and ultimately more diplomatic presence has to be felt in another country, so that this discouragement or breaking away or what is called as creating a vacuum in the relationship is ultimately taken off, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is speaking about deepfake technology. What is this deepfake technology? As the very name denotes, what we have is two words. One happens to be deep, the other happens to be fake. So making use of the artificial intelligence, that is deep learning, to create fake content is what is called as deepfake. So something which is not legitimate, something which is not accurate, something which is not right, something which is not informationally truth, that which is created out of artificial intelligence tools and mechanisms is what is called as deepfake. The author takes into picture couple of examples. Back in 2020, in the first ever AI generated deepfakes in political campaigns, a series of videos of Bharatiya Janata Party leader Manoj Tiwari were circulated on multiple WhatsApp groups. In a similar incident, a doctor video of Madhya Pradesh Congress Chief Kamal Nath recently went viral, creating confusion over the future of state government's Ladli Behna scheme. So what is being created? Videos that are morphed, videos that are created making use of the deepfake technology, where even if it is not me who is uttering those words, an image is created and a video is prompted in such a way that everything looks like it is that person who is making such a submission, or that person who is making such an argument before the general public. So basically, deep fake is nothing but making use of the deep learning technology, artificial intelligence tools and technologies to create an image or a video which is not right, and that video will be circulated in the general public or in the open forum where people may assume it to be right, creating a larger disturbance in the society if it comes from the person who happens to be a state representative. So earlier, this deepfake technology was not meant for the negative one. This deep learning and artificial intelligence was meant for the right use and for the positive outcome. So they have benefits in education, film production, criminal forensics and artistic expression, but now they have been used to exploit people, sabotage elections, and even spread large-scale misinformation as well, and that has become a major problem when it comes to the deepfake technology. And this deepfake technology does not require people of skilled labor, which means they need not have to have technological profess. There will be a tool, there will be a software, even an unskilled person would be able to use the technology and ultimately create those fake photos as well as images. So deepfakes can be easily generated by semi-skilled as well as unskilled individuals by morphing audio-visual clips as well as images. A 2019 study conducted by AI firm DeepTrace found that the staggering 96% of the deepfakes were pornographic and 99% of them involved women. Massachusetts Institute of Technology thus created deepfake website to help people identify deepfakes by focusing on small intricate details. To overcome this, they have come up with the technology, they have been testing it, and hopefully one day it is able to fine tune itself and ultimately help us understand which is real, which is genuine, which is right, and which is a fake one. So this is being developed by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Do we have enough laws in the country? Yes, we do have laws in our country, one in the form of the IT Act, the other is in the form of IT rules, and then what we also have is the Indian Penal Code. So as of now, when we look into the IT Act, what we have is section 66E of the Information Technology Act, which is applicable in cases of deep technology crimes that involve capture, publication or transmission of a person's images in mass media, thereby violating their privacy. Then we further have section 67, 67A and 67B of the IT Act, which can be used to prosecute individuals for publishing or transmitting deep fakes that are obscene or contain sexually explicit act. And then there are IT rules which also prohibit hosting any content that impersonates another person, requires social media platform to immediately take down. So let's say there is an image or a video of a person, this person promptly says the social media to remove the content. The social media like YouTube or for example Facebook or for example Twitter or X now will have to remove immediately. So they need to have a grievance officer who will listen to the grievances of the people and ultimately take out the content that will be hurting the sentiment of that particular individual. This is about the IT Act and the IT rules. Then what we have is the Indian Penal Code, which has cyber crimes associated with the deepfakes, which include section 509, 499, 153AB, and then there is forgery, and these are the acts and the sections that can be used in the Indian Penal Code. Is there a legal vacuum as of now? Yes, says this article. How? As of now, when we look into this act, originally when acts were designed, let's say for example the Indian Penal Code or for example the IT Act, it originally did not have all these provisions. So yes, we do have a legal vacuum as well. So what we have to create is a new law or create such sections in the existing law or create a new chapter that it is able to envisage and ultimately come up and prevent all the loopholes that are existing. So create a new chapter or a new sections in the existing law such that it is able to focus on the existing parameters, the loopholes in the existing parameters, and ultimately is able to correct them. Because originally when law was created, it did not envisage about deepfake technology because we did not know about it, but only now we know the existing issues of deepfake technology. So come up with new laws or new chapter and create a new one, says the author. What has been the central government's response? One, what the author says is that we have the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, which has taken measures. It has directed social media companies as well as organizations that in case you see a grievance, it has to be removed off within 24 hours, and such person whosoever does do it will be immediately be penalized as well. And apart from that, they are also thinking of coming up with measures so that this particular issue does not get molded in the near future. What are the measures that have been taken elsewhere? We have US President Joe Biden, who signed a far-reaching executive order on AI to manage its risks ranging from national security to privacy. Additionally, Deepfakes Accountability Bill 2023 has come into picture. And then what we have is the European Union, which has strengthened its code of practices on disinformation to ensure that social media giants like Google, Meta and Twitter start flagging deepfake content or potentially face fines. So if there is a video, it has to be flagged as fake video and they should be able to take measures. So India can also take some of the examples from elsewhere and ultimately can bring changes in the AI law as well. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says problematizing periodization in history. So this article basically goes on to say that we have the ancient history, we have the medieval history, and then we have the modern history. So when we speak about the ancient, modern and the medieval history, everything is seen from the lens of the European history. That is, the European history was in the dark age. That is, the Europeans assumed themselves to be the dark age because they did not have much of the information about the modern era. And once we have the modern era take off according to the European history, it meant that they were able to bring changes on the science and technology front. That is when the modern era starts off. So the author says that apart from what the Europeans think about the so-called modern era, we have to start universalizing the concept of history, because as of now everything is looked in the perception viewpoint and the lens of the European history. But this has to change, and we have to come up with a universal convention rather than looking at from the perception of the European colonialistic point, says the author. You have to just skim through this article, just read through this article, but overall what this article says is that everything, the history when it is being written, is only seen from the history books of the lens of the European colonialists. This has to change, and we have to create our own history, and we have to come up with our own terms and conditions and create this universal perception, is what is this article all about. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. So we have discussed all these articles primarily from the UPSC examination and the KPSC examination point of view. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.